Joining us in the studio, back with us for another segment, is Professor Alan Dershowitz. Good to have you back with us.
Thank you.
All right, a couple other issues we wanted to talk about, and particularly Dzhokhar Tsarnaev in the Boston bombing case. Prosecutors are now going to seek the death penalty. Was this a surprise to you at all?
If there's ever a crime that deserves the death penalty, it's this one, obviously. Premeditated, planned, lots of victims, just a devastating, horrible attack with no justification. On the other hand, it plays right into his hands. He wants to be a martyr, he wants the attention, he wants to be able to make his case to the public. So I think it would have been better if they had allowed him to just spend the rest of his life in prison and die in obscurity at the age of 80. And
certainly he'll become a martyr, become a point of pride in that area of the world. And there are some parallels being drawn between this trial and the Timothy McVeigh trial. That trial was moved out of Oklahoma City. Do you think that this trial should be granted a change of venue?
I don't think the defense lawyers will want to change a venue, because the only issue in this case is the death penalty or not. And Boston has a much more liberal jury pool, which is likely to have at least 1 or 2 jurors against the death penalty. So
even though this was so personal for the city of Boston, you know the city better than anybody.
I know, and I know people who are involved. I know a young woman who is struggling now, having been seriously injured. And I know other people who have been seriously injured. Everybody in Boston knows somebody. So the issue is not did he do it. The evidence is overwhelming. The issue is, does he get the death penalty? And remember, even Ted Kennedy didn't seek the death penalty for Sirhan Sirhan when he murdered his brother in cold blood. So Boston is a city which has at least conflicting views on the death penalty, and that might be good for the defense.
Now, are there any advantages or disadvantages for seeking the death penalty at this point in the trial?
You get a tremendous advantage. You get a jury, all of whom have to swear they have no opposition as a moral matter to the death penalty. But in this case, it doesn't much matter, because he's not going to the video. He's not going to claim he didn't know what he was doing. The only issue in the case is going to be the death penalty. And now what we don't know is whether he wants to avoid the death penalty or wants to become a martyr. And that's the first question his lawyer has to ascertain from him.
And his defense attorney, her name is slipping my mind at this time.
She's terrific.
And this is her specialty. Her sole focus right now is avoiding the death penalty. What leverage does she have, or what can she use to prevent this?
Well, all she needs is 1 juror. That's all. It has to be unanimous to get the death penalty. She has no leverage for plea bargaining, because he has nothing to offer. He hasn't even apologized, and he scribbled on the side of the boat that, you know, he was trying to kill America, basically. So she has no leverage except the fact that it's Boston, and you could get 1 juror who wants to hold out.
So what would be the point of the death penalty other than catharsis for the American people at this point?
You know, I don't think it's going to bring catharsis, because he's going to be a hero. The ACLU, the NAACP, they're all gathered around him. All the people who oppose the death penalty, as I do, are going to be cheering for him not to get the death penalty. It would be much better for everybody, I think, if he were just allowed to die in obscurity in a prison with nobody ever hearing from him again.
And what's your take? Do you think that the death penalty is going to happen in this case, or no?
I think it's going to be hard to get 12 jurors who will impose the death penalty on a young man who was heavily influenced by his brother, even though the crime was inexcusable.
All right, another topic we want to talk about, and that's Dinesh D'Souza. Yeah. Our audience probably knows him. He's very popular on our website for his movie Obama 2016, some other films he's made. Very critical of the president, but of course now he finds himself under the microscope of the Department of Justice for what, you know, if people follow political stuff, this seems like some inside baseball. Who gave money to whom for a particular, you know, does this reek to you of that he was targeted for this because of his political leanings? Well,
it certainly appears that way. Look, I don't agree with D'Souza at all. I don't like his film.
And anybody who knows you would know that.
Right, and I like Obama. And so, but I hate the idea that people are prosecuted for their political views. The criminalization of policy differences is ruining this country. I was very much opposed when Congressman DeLay was indicted. I'm not happy about the case against the former governor of Virginia. I don't like political prosecutions. I was involved in the case when Jeffrey Feiger was prosecuted. He was a Democrat. So I'm very worried that this could be perceived as selective prosecution. Here, after all, this is a guy who helps out a college classmate who didn't have a chance in the world of winning. It's a tiny contribution compared to what Bundler has put together. This is not the worst first. And I think it's a very bad exercise of prosecutorial discretion. Whether somebody sat down and made a decision to go after him because he's anti-Obama, I don't know that. But it certainly sounds like they didn't pick the worst person to go after.
But the appearance here for the public, when there's even an appearance of any kind of political targeting by one party against the other with these bodies that are supposed to be apolitical, like the Department of Justice, how does that affect the mentality of the nation?
I think it does very much, and I think it will affect the mentality of jurors too if they hear about this. And you know, we have to apply the law equally and fairly, and the first rule has to be the worst first. You have to go after the worst offenders. This guy, it's such a benign act, giving a friend a few bucks, not influencing the election in any way. It's not the case to select for prosecutors.
We'll have to see where that goes. Obviously, a lot of controversy surrounding that case. Alan Dershowitz, always a pleasure to have you with us. His new book is called Taking the Stand, My Life in the Law. And also coming up here on the Steve Malzberg Show, we have Rick Unger and Peter Marici, who will be joining us in just a few moments for a political roundtable. The Steve Malzberg Show continues. I'm John Bachman filling in. We'll hope to have you back soon.